Are you going to pick that up? Yeah, do you need a doggy bag? No, I know it's not a doggy, but it's you that's letting your kids shit on the street, isn't it? You can't just leave it there because it's not a dog. Unbelievable. Hello. So this time I want to talk a little bit about brand positioning and strategy. So I've seen quite a few positioning professionals recently, kind of all at the same time, have a complete change of heart, and it's kind of slightly odd. There seems to be a run of mea culpa posts, sort of saying, well, yeah, we've been advising you for all these years to niche down, and actually we've realised that's wrong. And I think the interesting thing there is, I'm not sure they understand what a niche is. So let me talk a little bit about that first. Now, a niche isn't just about an industry. It's about niching down further. And it needn't be an industry. I tell you what, it's a bit chilly. Do need a nice cup of tea. It needn't be an industry. So I have a brand I work with where we've niched down to company sizes and turnover across all industries. Really doesn't matter. But these guys are kind of there saying, well, don't niche down by industry. That's wrong. And I think really I need to question where they're coming from, because as a marketer, proper marketing starts with diagnosis. So we need to understand the market. We need to do our research. We need to understand what the business thinks of its marketplace. We need to understand what the customers think of the marketplace and the offerings. And ultimately, we need to get to a point where we need to get to a product market fit. And you don't do that by plucking something out of the sky. So you do your research, you do your diagnosis, you understand what your customers think, what customers of the category think, and where you can most closely align to win, okay? And so that's all diagnosis, you do your research. Research is fundamental, and there's all sorts of research, and I've talked about this before, but at the very least, you should be speaking to your client and unpacking everything they think they know. You should be looking out at the competitive set to see how other people present themselves. It can't be done in a vacuum. And as a marketer, having done that diagnosis, you then dig into it and you develop a strategy. Now, a strategy is as simple as choosing where you're going to play and where you're not going to play. And the latter is probably even more important, because you need to decide where you have the most chance of being profitable, where you have the most chance of winning market share, where you have the most chance of winning hearts and minds of the customers, the people that buy from the category, and where you're just going to be banging your head against a wall. Now, to be clear, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're turning away everybody that looks like the people that we bang our head against the wall with. Not at all. What it means is that we're focusing our attention, we're focusing our positioning, our proposition, our marketing communications, our campaigns on being what our most profitable market needs and wants us to be in order to choose us each time. It never means turning away business, not based on the ideal customer profile, but it does mean focusing on where we're playing. So you might call that niching. I kind of call that niching. I don't know why these guys don't think that is niching, but that's by the by. The fact is, with a strategy, you need to look at your segmentation. That's kind of around industry. Look at your segmentation. Look at who's buying from you and the rest of the category. And then you look at targeting. Where do we have the best chance of winning? Where are we making the most money? Where do we have a leg up on the competition? Is it geographic? Is it based on roles? Is it based on life cycle of business? All of these things come into play, okay? So segmentation, targeting, and then positioning. So in my world as a marketer, that's about a fairly prosaic statement of really who we need to be to the targets in order to win. What positioning professionals do is they then, to my mind, the ones I work with, turn that into an emotional, attention-grabbing, punch-in-the-gut proposition that really kind of says to that potential customer, these are the guys for me. That's creative. Oh, that's a good cup of tea. But it does have to be informed by strategy, which does have to be informed by diagnosis. So if you've got a professional positioning person telling you that, oh, I'm listening to what you're saying and I think this is where you need to go, they don't know what they're doing. You need to know where you are in the market. You need to understand strategy. You don't need to do strategy, but you need to understand it. Now, I'm lucky. I've worked with some very good positioning experts. Sometimes they've developed a position even before I've got involved, but they know to do the fundamentals. They know to unpack as much knowledge as they can about the marketplace, the customers, and the competitive set. And one of the things that's always worth doing is looking at the taglines or straplines that your competitors are using. Because if you're not doing that, then the chances are that you could come out with exactly the same tagline or strapline as your competitors. And there's nothing worse than investing in a position, a strapline that underpins everything you do. It's on your letterhead, it's above the door, it's on your website, it's on your TV, it's on your out of home. Imagine doing all of that and it says either exactly the same as some of your competitors or is so indistinguishable that it might as well be for one of them. Think about it. How do you not do that? You do your research and then you strategize. So again, just making this case very, very simple. Understand the market, which is the people that you're going to be selling to. Understand the competitive set, which are there other options to buy from. And don't be them. Choose where you can play to win. That's the strategy. Who you're going to be for and who you're not going to be for. Let's look at some examples. Let's look at probably the most commodified example possible. Water. Now, Liquid Death famously positioned against the entire category because they realize that there's a market for people that are going to buy rock and roll, skater boy, beer looking water. It's still just water. It's the same product as Evian, nice French name there, Mountain Hills, completely different approach. They're trying to be a different thing to a different sector of the market. And again, you tap water something else. Is it any different? Who cares? Doesn't matter. When you're looking at a brand, you need to kind of not necessarily own a space, but be in a position where you're not just treading over everyone else's feet. For me, probably the greatest historical brand position story is Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And Coca-Cola has always been the classic, and they've lent into Christmas. They've lent into kind of Americana, whereas Pepsi, back when I was a kid, was the taste of a new generation. But it's always positioned itself against Coca-Cola's kind of old-fashioned outlook. It's always tried to be younger. Now, they're both just brown sugar waters, really, but they're coming out differently. And what that means is, when you go into a store, because you've seen the associations, you've understood, it doesn't necessarily mean your decision is based on emotional. Personally, I buy Coca-Cola Diet Coke because I like the taste of it, and I'm diabetic. I don't like the taste of Pepsi. That's my choice. Do I like the Pepsi brand? Well, I used to. I don't now. I think they try too hard. But ultimately, they have a different position in your mind, which means they're in your mind. You've got to be mentally available. So, here's to the positioning experts that actually understand marketing. And for those that don't, watch the video, give me a shout, comment. I'm happy to have a conversation about this. Anyway, have you cleaned that shit up yet? Hang on a minute, that's not even a baby. That's a 14-year-old. How have you got a 14-year-old that's shitting in the street? Oh man, I've got to call social services. Ridiculous. Dirt.